Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today I thought we could do another Makeup 101, but on how to do your base. Don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and also turn on the bell so that way you get notified every time I upload a brand new video, and let's get started. Okay, so to start off your base, I would always recommend a primer, a face primer. To me, they're always helpful. You also need to pay attention to what type of primer you are buying because you need to make sure you are buying one that is suitable for your skin type. I have normal to oily skin, which means for the most part my face is normal. It doesn't produce a lot of oil. Ignore this. I picked it before the video and really shouldn't have. Because I am normal to oily, I don't necessarily go for a mattifying primer. I go for something that normally blurs my pores, or tries to blur my pores at least. My two go-tos right now is the Wet n Wild Impossible Primer. Looks like this. This one claims to mattify, but also hydrate, blur pores, prep skin for long-lasting makeup, and it's silicone free. I don't really know what silicone in it does, so don't ask me on that one. That one's a really good one on my skin type. The second one that I normally gravitate towards is the Bite Beauty Changemaker Skin Optimizing Primer. This one is specifically for normal to oily skin. Looks like that. So pretty much you want to make sure that you know your skin type. That way you can pick a very good primer for your skin type. They also have variations of primers that have to do with like blurring pores, or like I have this one just sitting here that is the one that we got from the Dollar Tree makeup video, and it's pink. It turns your whole face pink because it's supposed to brighten your complexion. That's always an option as well. They have color correctors if you need color correction, but I feel like for me, I don't need extreme color correction. I do want to go ahead and preface, like I do in every one of these videos, I am not a certified makeup artist. I also am not an esthetician. I cannot tell you what is good for your skin and what is not good for your skin. And I'm going to be going in with my Bite Beauty Normal to Oily Changemaker Skin Optimizing Primer. You always want to make sure too that you look at the instructions. This one doesn't have any on the bottle, but you want to look at the instructions and make sure how much you're actually supposed to use, because with the Tatcha primer it says to literally just use one pump. But I put it on my hands, I rub it in and get it nice and warm, and I start working it in. I first rub it in and then I start pressing. I really do like this primer. I feel like it helps keep my oils on my nose at least at bay for a little while. Now with primers, like I said, you can choose different ones, whether it be something that mattifies, something that hydrates, something that fills your pores. You can also choose a primer that is a little bit sticky. This one is not, but you can choose one that's a little bit sticky that helps your base stay on as well. And when it comes to foundation, again, you're going to hear this a lot in this video. You have to choose something that is proper for your skin type. So when choosing a foundation, of course there are thousands upon thousands of different choices that you could choose. Again, keep in mind your skin type. If you are like me, you have normal to oily skin, most of the foundations that I use should work for you. If you have dry skin, you can use hydrating foundations and not have to like counteract it with a primer. If you have super oily skin, you can use mattifying foundations without worrying about it literally looking like you could flake off your skin. If you have combination skin, most of the time you can wiggle between the different variations and just see what works best for you. Now, when it comes to choosing a foundation shade, I definitely recommend going into the store, getting you a little pump on like the back of your hand, and then like swiping it on your cheek in the store and going up to the mirror and looking at it so you can see if it will match your skin or not. For example, I am very, very cool toned. I have a pink kind of like hue about my skin, so I normally go for cool toned foundations that look kind of pinky. Like, I'm not quite sure if you can see that. It's pretty pinky. This one's actually decently neutral to yellow, which I ordered this one online, so I didn't know. But it all just depends on what type of undertone you have. I do recommend getting stuff on, like going in store and getting your foundation shades and swatching and seeing what it looks like in store, because ordering online, sometimes the descriptions aren't what they actually are. That was my issue with when I ordered this, which is a $60 foundation, so I'm gonna make it work, but it's a pricey mistake that you could make. Most of the time too, I try to go for a foundation that exactly matches my neck. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. I can remedy it with powders and bronzer and concealer and all that. By the way I sandwich everything together, it can make it look okay. Okay, so I feel like I've talked for a lifetime on how to choose a foundation, but there's just so much information about foundation that it's hard to take it all in and know what works for you, because they also have different finishes. Some can be matte, which is like dry looking. Some can be hydrating, like super dewy, almost looks like like you just put on moisturizer on your face. Some of them also, which is my personal favorite, have more of a like skin-like finish where it looks a little bit hydrating, but it doesn't look like you could drip at any moment because you're so wet. That's my personal favorite. I also like to go towards more medium coverage, medium to full coverage foundations, because I feel like that's just what suits me better. I don't have a lot that needs to be covered, so I don't need the most full coverage foundation out there. Okay, with all that said, I believe I'm going to go in with my Fenty foundation today. With foundation, especially if you don't know how much it spreads and how it looks on the skin, I recommend starting off with a pump or two of the foundation and then slowly adding more if you need more. I smeared it a little bit, but I definitely recommend getting a kind of like a little dish that you can pump your stuff on so you're not constantly putting stuff on the back of your hand. There's nothing really wrong with that if you don't feel like getting a dish like this, but I happen to always put it on the back of my hand there for a little while and would have a bad habit of like running my hand through my hair, and I would get foundation all in my hair. But this is just a little candle dish, one of the dishes that you can set a candle on. You can get them at Dollar Tree. It doesn't have to be anything super expensive, or it doesn't even have to necessarily be anything that is made for makeup. You can make that shit work any way that you want it to. So I put 2 pumps on my little petri dish, is what I call it. I personally like to use a sponge when it comes to my foundation and concealer. I know some people like to use a brush. If you would like to try a brush because you don't like the finish of a sponge, you can get stuff like kabuki brushes. This is a flat top kabuki brush. It is very, very dense. The bristles are very compacted together, but it's also very, very soft. So you could use this. When I use a brush, I normally do a stippling motion. I don't rub, but again, personal preference on whatever you like. And then there's also this brush as well, which is a kabuki, but it's a round top kabuki. Can you see that? How it's domed looking. It's not just straight up flat. This one's a very good one as well. Both of those are brushes from Morphe, but the sponge that I'm going to be doing today is my e.l.f. Camo Concealer Sponge. It looks like this. Now there are a lot of different sponges out there. You can test them out. This one's actually really good. I like this a lot. I have an actual Beauty Blender brand. That one's pretty good as well. I do like the Juno & Co. sponges. They are microfiber, so it helps spread the foundation and make it more full coverage. Sponge actually soaks up a little bit of the foundation, but for me, I like that because it gives it more towards the skin-like finish than, say, a brush or the microfiber sponge. Now with the sponge, they normally come, let me grab one, it is dirty, so don't judge me. This is the size that it normally comes, and then this is the size after I've wet it. You see the size difference? I like to wet the sponge because it helps prevent your sponge eating up all of your foundation, and it also helps give it more of the dewy finish. Skin-like, not necessarily fully dewy. What you do is you put the sponge underneath the tap water, or I use tap water, do whatever you want, and I just squeeze it a couple of times to make it soak in some water, and then I turn the tap off and I just wring out as much water as I can, and then I also grab a hand towel of some sort and squeeze it into that too, so it's not sopping wet when I go to dip it into my foundation and use it on my face. Now, when it comes to picking up foundation, I don't just dab my entire sponge into the whole pile and soak up as much as possible. I normally will start dipping into the edge of the foundation and get it on my sponge. Zoom in a little bit. And then since I have it picked up on my sponge, I'll start towards the center of my face because normally that's where I would like more coverage, especially on my cheeks. Is where I need more coverage. My forehead doesn't really need much at all, it just needs to be evened out. But I start by pouncing. Just lightly tapping your face. I don't bring my foundation all the way up to my lower lash line because that's where I would put my concealer, and if you pile on the foundation all the way up and then also put the concealer underneath your eyes as well, it can age you and it can also make your under eyes crease very easily. Now, I mentioned this in a video before where I actually shaved my face on camera. But if you are having issues with your foundation laying on your face and it just doesn't look quite right, or say you have an excess buildup of dry skin, you can take a razor that looks like this. I get mine on Amazon. That's the brand name, Tinkle. And then you just shave your face. You can go and look at the video if you need help with how to shave your face. Grabbing a little bit more foundation, and I'm going to start working on this side. You always want to place the foundation where you feel like you need the most coverage, and then work your way out. This foundation in my Sephora actually was half priced, so it's definitely worth trying in my opinion because I really, really like it. You want to make sure you are getting into every nook and cranny by like making all the ugly faces and pouncing it in there. This foundation actually does have a decently strong scent, so if you don't like scented foundations or you can't handle a strong perfume smell, don't get it. Now with my foundation, if you're new here, I have a very gnarly wrinkle right here, especially because like I move my face a lot when I talk. But as far as foundation goes on my forehead, I try not to put too much, because when I put too much it makes it crease even more. So I don't really grab much. This, honestly, foundation just has like really good coverage. Lift up your hair and make sure you are getting your hairline so that there's no like harsh cutoff of where your foundation ends and your natural hairline color begins. Still just pouncing. You don't need to do it hard at all. It probably looks like I'm doing it hard because I do it fast, but I'm genuinely not. I'm just barely tapping it. I'm trying to make sure that I'm being as detailed as possible in these Makeup 101s, so if it seems redundant to you because you already know that information, I do apologize, but there are people that don't know it. I've had quite a few people write me about some things that they need help on, so I have a couple more ideas of Makeup 101s to do. Now I'm just going to take some extra foundation and work it down my neck. This foundation matches my neck pretty good. It's just I want to make sure that if my face is nice and even one color, I want my neck to be nice and even in one color as well. You don't have to take it all the way down to your neck, like all the way down to like say your collarbone or anything. I would just make sure that you are bringing it down so it's not like a cut off mask on your face. Still just stippling, stamping, whatever you want to call it, the foundation on. I do bring it right here onto my ears because it helps the transition. And then do this side. And then I also bring it like behind my ears a little bit. And then once I get to where I've been blending it down to about here by stamping, I just drag. You don't want to drag your beauty blender, sponge, whatever on your face because it will remove some of the coverage. But doing this to my neck helps it fade more naturally down. Okay, and that took the whole 2 pumps to do my whole face. Again, it's personal preference. Use however much foundation you want. If you feel like you need 10 pumps for your whole face, you do you, girl. I'm not gonna judge you. I'm sure you look bomb as hell. Okay, so now once I do my base, I normally go in with my concealer. I do use the Hourglass concealer because it is rather full coverage. The color looks nice. I like the finish. Now with concealers as well, they do have different ranges on coverage. Some of them are just like a light wash of color to kind of even out the under eye color a little bit, but then there are ones like this one where they could literally cover if you murdered your neighbor. Not really. Just joking. I have a sick sense of humor and I do apologize. Anyways, with concealer, I try not to use too much because if I use too much again, it's going to create the creasing really bad underneath my eyes. It's just going to turn into a very bad situation. But like I said with the foundation, if you want to literally carve out your whole face in concealer, you do you. Again, I'm sure you look bomb as hell. It's just not my journey. So I take the concealer and I normally place it about right there, because that's where the most of my darkness is. And then to lift a little bit, I put a little bit right there. Now I did go over this in depth on my highlighting and contouring video, so I'm not going to be too deep about it in this one. Because I like to highlight with my concealer, I normally take it in the areas that I want to highlight as well while I'm concealing. Now for full coverage for areas like a breakout, you definitely want to leave it decently long. I would honestly recommend for a big bad breakout, which this one wasn't too horrible, but I would recommend doing that before putting the concealer on before you do your foundation. So that way it can get as much coverage on that sucker as possible. Now for concealer, I do just use my sponge. Still just tapping, but with concealer I try to make sure that I keep it mainly focused in the area that I placed it. For breakouts, I'm gonna not talk while I do that so I don't mess it up, but for breakouts I spot it onto the spot itself, and then normally I'll go around the edges of where I placed it and blend out the edges, but I won't actually take the sponge on the spot itself, because we don't want to take away any coverage from the spot. Just like that. And it still looks like a lighter circle right there, but it will kind of blend all together when I put on my finishing powder. Still just stippling, stamping, bouncing, whatever you want to call it, because we don't want to move around the base, because now that you've put on the concealer, you can still move the base around even when you don't want to. I don't recommend taking your concealer on your eyelid as an eye base. If it works for you, then it works for you, but one thing that I agree really heavily on with Robert Welsh is that if you use concealer on your eye as your eye base, most of the time it's going to crease like crazy or make your eyelid very oily, because concealer is made for the under eye. The under eye is most of the time it's the area that needs the most hydration on your whole face, excluding your lips, of course. But if this is supposed to be super hydrating, if you put it on your eyelids, it's going to make your eyelids super hydrated as well, which isn't always a horrible thing, but if you already have issues with an oily eyelid, it's going to amplify it and make it worse. Now for eye bases, I will go in depth about those when I do a Makeup 101 on eyeshadow. Okay, so we have the concealer all blended out nice and evenly. Most of the time with concealer, I start at the bottom of where I placed it and blend out those edges and then work my way up, so that way I'm keeping the most coverage again where I placed it. Now, I don't cream contour, I don't do that. I'm lazy and don't feel like it, to be honest with you. I like to use a cream bronzer though to kind of make the bronzer look and feel more natural than just going in with powder after powder after powder. I use the Jaclyn Cream Bronzer in the shade Nakey. And for my cream bronzer, I normally use my Anastasia A30 brush. It is a flat top kabuki. It's dirty because I just used it. But I normally use this for my bronzer because it helps me target exactly where I want it. And then I can blend out or make it softer with a sponge if I need to. Okay, so just gonna place my bronzer where I want it. Place it, and then I blend it. I like doing bronzer and blush because I feel like it brings life back to the face. If you don't like blush or you don't like bronzer or you don't like both, that's fine. Everything with makeup, in my opinion, is personal preference. Not everybody's gonna like the same exact things that you do, and that's okay. Just because I don't like a product that you adore doesn't mean it's a shit-ass product. Even with brushes too, I still do the stippling motion because, like I said earlier, I don't want to swipe and remove my base from underneath. So I place it by stippling with the brush, and then I go in with my sponge and I stamp around the edges first. And then I'll go over the actual color itself if I need to. If you feel like you put too much on, most of the time you can take your sponge with the foundation that you used and you can just go right over it and it'll blend right into the skin. Now, because I am pretty fair all over my body, I try not to go too deep with my foundation or with my bronzer because I don't want my face to look all nice bronze and tan and then my body look like a marshmallow. The reason why you would want to use a kabuki type brush with the tighter bristles is because it can give you a more concentrated amount of the color and it doesn't only do a wash of the color. If you want to do a wash of the color, you can do something that is more spaced out and has a lot less bristles in it. And then because my nose is very finicky, I cannot use a brush on it. I just can't. So I use my sponge, which this actually has been working for me recently and I'm very ecstatic about it. I take the sponge, I pinch the sponge, and then I go in and get some product. And then I can do the sides of my nose with the sponge while pinching it still. I don't like to contour, like I said earlier, but I do like putting color on my nose because if I don't, I feel like my nose just looks non-existent. It looks like a big old white blob in the middle of my face. So I normally do that to help it at least have some sort of structure and color to it. Still just stamping. If you feel like you have too harsh of a line down the side, you could always use a clean part of your sponge and just stamp over it and it'll help blend it together. Freaking close. Freaking close. Okay, now I personally like to use cream blush as well. I do actually, I'll go in with cream products, I'll set everything, and then if I feel like my setting took away the color, I'll go over it and reinforce it a little bit with powder products, just so it's layered and it has dimension. But the cream blushes that I've really been into are the e.l.f. putty blushes. Super affordable and super good. I have, this one's Bora Bora, and this one's Turks and Caicos. That's the colors. This one is more like warm and bronzy, and this one's more like baby doll pink. I think what I'm going to use today is going to be Turks and Caicos. And I will normally take the brush that I used for my cream bronzer and I'll wipe it off on a hand towel, and I'll use the same exact brush. And I just stipple this on as well. Blush is one of those things though that it's the first thing to fade on your face, or at least for most people I've noticed. It is the first thing to fade on your face. Please ignore the tin in the background. The wind is really whipping outside, and we have a tin roof on our front porch, and one of the corners has came loose from all of the whipping, and it makes a lot of noise. But like I was saying, most people, from what I hear and see, say that their blush is one of the first products to wear off, other than, of course, like your lip product. So, I personally like to put on a good bit of blush, and then it'll most of the time fade throughout the day. If not, then instantly. Again, going over the edges, because we want everything to be seamless and melt together. Okay, so now that we have all of our cream products on that we normally use, you can also use a cream or a liquid highlighter as well if you want to. I normally just use powder. Not really any particular reason why, that's normally what I just grab. But if you look up and close, this is what, here, let me zoom in even more. This is what my face looks like. I have no filters on my videos. I don't do that. I don't believe in doing that, because to get real deep real quick, me personally, I would watch like beauty YouTubers and stuff, and I'd see all their photos and see their videos and everything like that, and everything just looked so beautiful. Like their skin just looked flawless. They didn't have any like pimples. It seemed like it didn't seem like they had any texture on their skin. Not a damn wrinkle in sight. It drove me crazy because it made me feel like there was something wrong with me or my application of, say, foundation, because when they would put on foundation, their skin was just like flawless, blown out perfection and had no texture at all, and that's not realistic. Like, I have texture, and that's okay. It's okay to have texture. It's normal. And to me, that's very important to show. I'll zoom out a little bit because that was way too much. Now is normally when I would go in and start setting my face with a loose powder. There are multiple options. Like, let me grab... Okay, so there are multiple different options that you can choose between when it comes to a loose setting powder. There is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Translucent Powder. Translucent means it has no base to it, so you should be able to put it on and it not really change the color of your skin itself. Then there's also, that's gross, hold on, let me clean that. Okay, so like I was saying, there's the Wet n Wild Photo Focus loose powder is really good. The Coty Airspun powder, a lot of people talk about this one. I think I got this one in translucent extra coverage. Don't know what that means. This is a very good powder as well, but it does flash back if you use too much, which means where you place the powder if somebody takes a flash photo of you, like a photo with flash, you're gonna see a big old white, say like triangle under your face, exactly where you put the powder. Another really good one is the Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. I use this one too. Haven't used it in a long time, so I'll probably use it today. But this one's on the higher end. Both of these are drugstore. You can pick them up at the drugstore. All are very good options. One powder that I've found that I don't like, that I actually have in my stash, is the Anastasia powder. I don't know. I just personally don't like it. I find it too drying. They do have different like loose powders like this that have different colors to them. So if you don't want to use a translucent, or if you want to use something that has a little bit more color to it, there is, let me grab it. These are very, very good. These are the Fit Me Maybelline Loose Finishing Powder. I have both of these. I have it in light. Oh, come on, focus. I have it in light and fair light. They have color to them. Like you can see that this one is lighter than this one. This one is like an all over face set for me, and this one is more like under eye brightening. So there's plenty of options for you. Now when you go in to set your face, I normally like to inspect, make sure that nothing has creased, which I'm honestly surprised that my forehead crease hasn't creased more, because she's a bitch. And then like my under eyes, they crease very bad. This is why I set my under eyes. If you don't have this issue, you don't have to set your under eyes. If it creased and you let it sit for too long and it doesn't blend out, you can always spritz your face with setting spray, or you can just take a tiny little dab of your concealer and plop it under there again and blend it over top of it, and it'll help re-moisten it and it'll help it move around. I'm probably gonna have to do that because I've been doing a lot of talking. So it's set pretty bad. Okay. Just a doop doop. You don't need a lot. Just blend that out and it takes away the creases immediately. There are a lot of ways that you can set your under eye. You can take a fluffier brush, just like any like domed looking fluffy brush, and you can dip into the powder and set underneath your eyes. You can use your sponge, which is what I normally do, or you can use what is called a velour puff. That's always an option as well. So normally I take my sponge and I dip into the powder, and let me show you. And I tap it onto the back of my hand, so that way it's evenly coated on the sponge. I don't even know if that was in fucking focus. So, make sure the creases are gone. And then set it. Now you don't want to put a lot of setting powder because it can make you look older, because it makes it look drier under there, which in turn makes the wrinkles show, hence makes you look older. So make sure no creasing, and then set it. Every time I pick up powder, I am stamping it on the back of my hand to make sure that it is evenly covered. Now, as you are putting on your powder, it will make your face look drier, but that's kind of what powder does. It's only an issue if, in my opinion, if you go to set your face with setting spray to help rehydrate, and it still doesn't look like skin. Now, because I am normal to oily, and my oiliness is pretty much my nose and my chin, I do set that pretty heavily to kind of counteract any oils that would be coming through the skin. This most definitely will be a decently long video because it is a Makeup 101. So I do apologize in advance. But just grab your snack, chill out, vibe out like you're watching a movie, you know? The amount that you set your face is, of course, personal preference. You don't have to go through and set your whole face like I do. It's just I don't want my base to be tacky at all, like any stickiness at all, because it will drive me absolutely nuts if my hair sticks to my face. It's kind of like how lip gloss sticks to your hair when the wind blows. I can't stand it. So I inherently set my whole face. And as I'm setting, I'm still keeping that trend of tapping my face with the sponge, because my main goal is to make sure that I'm not moving anything that I've already placed on my face. Setting your face with a loose powder, if it's a good powder like the Laura Mercier, most of the time it will also help blur your pores as well if you have large pores. And the more you do your base, or your makeup in general, the more you do it, the quicker you can get at it. And honestly, the better you get at it. Now, once I've gone through and I've set my whole face and I think I've got everything, I normally take my hands and I just lightly press on my face to see if I feel any spots that I missed, which I actually did really good this time. Okay, that's great. So, now would be the time to reinforce any of the cream products that you've put down if you need to. Like, I can still see my blush a little bit, but my bronzer is hidden a little bit underneath the translucent powder. So I'll take a bronzer, like a lightweight bronzer that's not super heavy color-wise, like it's not super pigmented. Like I like to take the Jaclyn Cosmetics one. And I will take like a flat angled brush. Looks like this. This is the Morphe E4, and I'll pick up the product. Here, I'll show you. I'll pick up the product like this, and because her bronzer is so lightweight, I don't have to worry about stamping it on my face and it being like, wha-pow, now we're fucked. So I normally take it and just kind of stamp it right over where I would want the bronzer. I even like towards the center of my face. I'll use the pointed tip and kind of smooth over the apples of my cheek a little bit. But just doing that helps dust off a little bit of the translucent powder we just put down, and it brings back the color. Like, can you see the difference? Do this side. I don't pick up a lot, honestly. Well, it probably looks like a lot when you watched me do it, but it genuinely isn't, because her bronzers are so light in pigment. It's easier to build them up and not have to worry if you need to. Again, just going around everywhere that I placed the bronzer. Just lightly taking some more and either tapping or rubbing. Because we've already placed the translucent powder all over my face, I don't feel like I have to just stipple when it comes to my face. When it comes to my nose, she's a fickle bitch, so we do have to be careful. So I'll take some on my brush for my nose, and I just kind of gently tap. I even go over the center of my nose because I'm not too concerned about a contour the nose as much as I am about just getting the pigment on there. And stamping it gently on my nose helps keep the product on my nose, because I found that if I go in and rub, even at this stage where I put an ass ton of translucent powder on my nose, if I go and rub, it's going to 1010% take off my foundation. Now for blush, you can still see it a little bit, but I do still go over that a little bit with powder blush, so that way it stays all day, because it's one of those products that does wear off very easily. So you can use stuff like, I have this blush palette from Lunar Beauty. It's freaking amazing. It has an ass ton of different colors that you can use. One thing you want to keep in mind when you mix colors, mix products, is that you want to make sure that you go with something that is around the same tones. So this middle one would be the best in my opinion. You can honestly mix these two together to make this color. So that's probably what I'll do. I honestly don't really like the blush in these. So I'm going to take the same brush that I did my bronzer with, and I'm just going to tap a couple times in each one of the blushes, and we'll place it. Just like that. We want to reinforce it just a little bit. I even take the blush and I'll put it on the tip of my nose, and I'll take the residue and bring it up here. One thing I did forget to do is take my cream bronzer down my neck, or around my jawline I mean. So I'm just going to take the powdered bronzer and do that. Just enough to give me a little bit of structure right here. Not enough to really like cut off 10 pounds. Would be nice though. Just like a light wash. Okay, now we have almost everything done. This is the step of like, do you want highlight or do you not want highlight? A lot of people now are kind of steering away from it. I use it sometimes I don't. It just depends on the look that I'm going for. There are two different kinds of highlights that you can choose between. Both of mine that I prefer are inherently from Jaclyn Cosmetics, but you can choose whatever you like. This is the palette. I believe she sells these in singles now. This is what the inside looks like, and I'll swatch this one for you guys. You see how blinding they are? That's what it looks like on the back of my hand. Super, super bright and blinding. And honestly, that's not even the brightest highlighter she has in her cosmetic line. They also have these, which are the Mood Light powders. These are more of a your skin but better type of highlight, where it's not as glittery. Like this one right here is the Mood Light powder. It's more of the your skin but better, like bridal type glow. It's very pretty. And then the other one is very more wabam. So it just depends on which one you want. What I like to do personally is I like to take a setting spray of some sort, spray my entire face, and let that sink in to allow my face to get a little bit of hydration back to it. The spray that I love doing this the most with is the Desi Skin Do Me Over Prep Set and Refresh Face Mist. It looks like this. I mentioned it, I think, in my favorites of the year. I'm like to here on it. Like I'm almost out, and I need to order more. Take it and spray your whole face. The mister on that is really great. There are some setting sprays that have a mister that when you, baby hairs are going nuts, that when you spray it, it will like spit at you and leave like little dots all over your face, and then when you try to like remove the dot, it freaking looks horrible and messes up your entire foundation. Me personally, I don't like the MAC Fix Plus. I don't like it. Every time I try to use it, it did that and it messed up my foundation, and I just hated it, to be honest with you. The Morphe Continuous Setting Mist isn't bad either. The Urban Decay All Nighter, I don't know about the staying power that it claims to have, but it does help melt my makeup together as well. But now that that's sunk into our skin, one thing that you can do is do your highlighter now, which normally I take a R36. It's a big fluffy brush from Morphe, and this is what I normally apply my highlighter with. I'm just going to go in with these Your Skin But Better Mood Light powders, and I get it all over my brush, and I'll apply it. This one I don't have to worry about applying too much because it is so soft. Like, it has the glow, but it's not like bam in your face. If you choose something like a super bright, shiny, glittery highlight like this one, it can enhance your texture on your skin if you have any. But stuff like this one, like, you can see my texture a little bit, but it's not punching you in the face. Like, this is the type of highlight that you would want to wear, say, on your wedding day. And then when I use this one, the lighter highlighting powder, I do take it above my brow, just a little bit, just like that. And it gives you that, like, ethereal glow to your skin. I do, however, use the blinding one for my nose, because even though I do not like to contour my nose, I do like for there to be a highlight because it kind of tricks the eye into giving a little bit of shape to your nose. Now for this, I do use a little cat paw brush. It is the Morphe M124. Looks like this. It's like flat and then rounded, kind of literally like a cat paw. I'm just going to dip into Iced from that palette. Okay, so using the little cat paw brush, I will put a little dot at the end of my nose, and then I'll also take it right between my eyes and down about halfway down the bridge of my nose. To create a focal point on my nose. And then with the dot, I normally take my finger and like work around the edges like you would with a pimple. So that way it's not like a harsh shape on your nose. Okay, and I do believe, other than the final set at the end of your makeup, this is the end of a flawless base. So I'm going to finish my face off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, so big change here. I went ahead and did my eyes in a different video, which was a complete shit show, so you'll have to watch that one to see what I mean exactly. But we went a little color explosion, and I really like how it turned out. It was a journey getting here, but I really like it. Anyways, if you guys are curious, on my lips I used Laura Lee's brand liquid lipstick in Kissmas, and mix it with Jaclyn Cosmetics Oh Hi liquid lipstick. And then I topped it with the Iggy Azalea like BH Cosmetic collaboration in I'm Psychic Gloss. Gloss. That sounds weird. And then for lashes, I used Lily Lashes in the style Diamonds. But yeah, I hope that this video helped you guys out some, if any at all. If you have questions, please feel free to comment them down below, and I will make sure that I write back to every single one of you guys. Don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and also turn on the bell so that way you get notified every time I upload a brand new video. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!